So we thought that the coaching carousel was over for this offseason with Mike Brown heading off to Notre Dame and Kenny Guyton coming in as the new wide receivers coach. But obviously, that hasn't been the case as Jack Bicknell Jr. has been reassigned, quote unquote, to a new position within the staff. And there's an opening for a new offensive line coach. Jack McNell took a lot of criticism this year for his handling of the offensive line. Some of it warranted, a lot of it not. I think a lot of the problems with the offensive line this year were developmental issues that couldn't be fixed in one season. But regardless, we're in a position where we need to get a new offensive line coach. And this is going to be a very pivotal hire for Luke Fickell. And this is where there's going to have to be a compromise in the hiring of the coach. I think we saw that with Kenny Guyton coming in. Mike Brown was a Luke Fickell guy, and he was brought in. He was on the staff before Phil Longo was hired. Um, I think in good faith that they both thought they were going to be able to work together. Obviously, it didn't gel. The way Mike Brown taught receivers did not work with what Phil Longo was doing. An offensive line coach, I think both we need to find an offensive line coach that Phil Longo can work with, but also an offensive line coach that could be here if they decide to move on from Phil Longo after the season, or Phil Longo takes another job, whatever. So Phil Longo needs to be involved in the hire. Obviously, he handpicked Jack Bicknell Jr. this coming season, but Luke Fickell needs to make a hire for both the short term and the long term. That being said, I over the last couple of days I put together a candidate list, and I want to preface this before I get into this. That candidate list is purely speculation. There is no insider knowledge or anything like that. I just made a wish list going off of previous connections to Luke Fickell, previous connections to Ohio State, and or coaches from the Ohio State tree that Luke Fickell knows. And then I threw in a couple wish list candidates, and we'll also come back with at the end here with some more Wisconsin candidates, because we know Wisconsin fans, as soon as a job's hired, we just want to go through the all-time roster and start naming Badgers without seeing anybody who has any coaching experience. Well, I found a couple who have experience, so we'll get into those. In this first video here, and I'm going to break these down into a bunch of different ones to kind of get the numbers down a little bit, the minutes down. The first two I'm going to present to you on this video are younger, up and coming coaches that, if we're brought in and play the cards right, could be guys who could be with the program for a long time. The downside of young coaches is if they succeed at Wisconsin, there are schools with bigger budgets that could come calling. And that's going to be where Chris McIntosh has got to decide how he wants his program to be. Is he going to allow all of his young coaches to disappear? I think Mike Brown, that was less about Notre Dame poaching him and more about us letting them poach him. So with these young guys, you get the benefits of young coaches. Coaches who, closer to the player's age, can relate to the players more, are more knowledgeable and more comfortable with modern schemes, and fit into new college football. All right, so the first candidate I have here for you is Austin Bujnak, who is the offensive line coach and, as of the season, the co-offensive coordinator at Youngstown State. His connection to Luke Fickell is he was a graduate assistant at Cincinnati for Fickell's first 2 years in 2017 and 2018. Uh, Austin is a Cincinnati guy through and through. He played at Cincinnati, graduating in 2013, joined the staff as graduate assistant in 2015 with Tommy Tuberville, and started his coaching journey there. In 2019, Luke Fickell's offensive line coach went to Youngstown State to become their head coach, and in 2020, Austin joined the staff as their offensive line coach. All right, so let's just look at a couple points here of why maybe Austin would be a good choice, statistics and player development wise. Youngstown State. First thing, let's get into it before we get into it. Youngstown State plays in one of the most difficult conferences in the FCS, the Missouri Valley Conference. This conference has all of your North Dakota schools, South Dakota schools, Northern Iowa, you name it. And they were able to make the playoffs this year. That's a big deal because that's a very tough conference. To go 9-5 and to make it to the playoffs, or sorry, 7-5 and make it to the playoffs is a big deal, and especially because they're trying to turn their program around a little bit. So in 2023, his first year as the co-offensive coordinator, they set a school record for 40 plus points in a game at 6. They recorded 30 or more points in 6 straight games, another school record, scored 28 plus points in all but 2 games, while only allowing 18 sacks and leading the FCS in time of possession at just over 35 minutes. Okay, that sounds to me like a nice balanced offense. Okay. And when you go back, I encourage you to look at some highlights of Youngstown State. Offensively, there are your standard quote unquote power spread team running a lot of zones, split flow, drop back passing game with your verts and your crossers, except, a lot of things that we're going to see. So systematically, I don't see much of a issue with Austin coming in. Okay, development wise, they had a second team all conference this year and also a second team FCS freshman All American at tackles. And that's a good sign right there. Okay. A left tackle freshman starting, and he's able to get him up and running. That's very good to see. Obviously, if we're going to look farther back, we're going to see a lot of the same points that we talked about when Coach Spalding came in. Was the offense that they were, or excuse me, the running game that they were able to build with Jaleel McLaughlin back in 2022 and 2021. Obviously, he was the Missouri Valley Conference Offensive Player of the Year in 2022, averaging 206 yards per game as an offense. He also had second team all-conference player in Mike McAllister, their center. So again, these are enough points for me, stat line that shows obviously he knows what he's doing. Added responsibilities to his plate this last season, and the offense took a step forward as a whole. And it wasn't just a product of having a superstar running back. And these are good signs for a young and up-and-coming coach. Again, the problem with young up-and-coming coaches is if he does good at Wisconsin, somebody's going to come call him. So that's where we're going to have to keep our budget up and make sure we keep our young guys. But he would be an interesting prospect. I think he'd be a nice mix of a young player with experience who can relate to the players, but obviously he has the chops to build a good offense, solid running attack with solid fundamentals all the way around. All right, so that is Austin Bujnak. Okay, so the next candidate that we're going to take a look at is Alex Huddle. He is currently the offensive line coach at Old Dominion. And his connection to Luke Fickell is he was a graduate assistant in 2019. Another connection that I like in terms of a fit is he joined the Old Dominion staff after following offensive coordinator Kevin Decker from Fordham. And Kevin Decker has a deeper connection to the New Hampshire Mafia offense. And if you look at what Fordham's running, you can see a lot of similarities between what he's running and Chip Kelly and Ryan Day. So I think it's a really good fit going in there. But Austin is another young guy. Um, he has been coaching. I mean, he stopped playing after a cup of coffee in the NFL in 2016. He was graduate assistant at Bowling Green. He coached a D3 school in Ohio before he took on his responsibilities at Cincinnati, 3 years at Fordham, and now he's at Old Dominion. Again, as a little bit earlier in his coaching journey here, just a tad bit younger, but has some really intriguing numbers that present himself that he could be a very interesting candidate. Um, I don't have much on Old Dominion this season. I will say they made a bowl game. They progressed from the ashes of Conference USA and joined a much more competitive Sun Belt this year. Made a bowl game, and moving forward in their with their new offensive coordinator, I think Old Dominion is going to be a good Sun Belt program coming forward, and I think Kevin Decker is going to be a guy to talk about because if we look back at his numbers and Alex Huddle's numbers at Fordham, they had some ridiculous numbers. 609 yards per game, 49.5 points per game, 96 yards rushing per game. We had 3 offensive linemen make the All-Patriot team, including left tackle Phil Sala, who was a second-team All-American. 2021, they had an NFL draft pick in Nick Zakelj. He was also an FCS first-team All-American. Phil Sala was again a first-team All-Patriot League player, and obviously along with Zakelj. And with a school that threw the ball as much as Fordham did, they led the Patriot League, were 22nd in the country in fewest sacks allowed, and led the Patriot League and was 9th in the NCAA in fewest tackles for loss allowed per game. So those are some intriguing numbers that can show you where we are fundamentally with Coach Huddle, and he could be another very interesting pick to come in. All right, so there's your first 2 candidates we're going to look at, Austin Bujnak and Alex Huddle. Both young guys with connections to Luke Fickell that could be intriguing candidates. I'm not sure that young up-and-comer is the direction that will be right for the coaching staff. If there was questions about Jack Bicknell being a bit of a player's coach, then maybe bringing in a more of a drill sergeant, no nonsense kind of guy, kind of like Bob Bostat might be what the doctor ordered. But you never know with young guys. I know nothing about these guys' personality. Young guys don't take crap from other young guys because you have to work hard to earn respect when you are not much older than the peers that you're coaching. So young guys will be intriguing candidates. It'd be interesting to see if any other names pop up that are more in this line, but at least we got 2 here that have connections to Fickell and could provide solid offensive line coaching going forward in the future. All right, so the next video we're going to be talking about tomorrow, the next day, is we're going to be breaking down a couple of the more likely coaches, as in we're going to look at two of Luke Fickell's previous offensive line coaches who moved on from Cincinnati for various reasons during his tenure there. And we'll see how their candidacies fit what we're looking for in offensive line coaches. So until next time, thank you for watching.